Back to kind of the record book. Trevor mentioned it before. OU all-time leading rusher. It's one of those places where it's if it's not RBU, it's one of the top 5 best places for producing running backs. Talk about that record. What that means to you too.
Considering who had come before me, that one was a big one for me. Funny, I was talking to Bate a few months ago, and he was like, I just realized you save your most exaggerated runs for when you're about to break a record.
College football tees, college basketball tees, whatever you need, Mercury has you covered with the best merch out there. We're talking about high quality clothing, inexpensive, and the best part is I have a 15% discount for everybody who goes and gets some right now. Use the code below, hit the link in the description, and go get your merch now. Use the code to get 15% off. What are you waiting on? Go do it.
And welcome back to another episode of the Dial It Up podcast with Trevor Knight and Connor Knight. And this one is going to be a fun one, guys. We've got one of my favorite teammates of all time, multiple-time All-Big 12 rusher, the leading rusher in Oklahoma history and current Denver Bronco, Samaje Perine. Samaje, give us an update on you, man. Obviously, you've been rocking and rolling for a long time, but give us an update on the family, how you guys doing, and what's going on in your world right now.
Oh, man. It's quite the intro, by the way. I appreciate that. It's a little bit, exaggerative, but we'll go for it. Everything's good, man. As you said, we're here now in Denver. This is going on year 8 in the NFL. Everybody's doing good. Family's doing good. We have 3 little ones now. It's crazy. We have a 5-year-old, 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old. And it's girl, boy, girl. And I tell you what, man, those girls, they're a different breed. They are a different breed. But everything's good, man. Just enjoying life.
I love it. You're learning how to put pigtails in and all sorts of stuff. I know that's different for you. So,
oh my God,
that's good, man.
Yeah, it sure is. Because I don't have to worry about that. Look at that.
That's right.
I got to figure it out somehow.
keeping it nice and smooth. That's awesome. Hey, I want to start here, Samaje. Obviously, incredible career at Oklahoma, and what you're doing now has been amazing. We'll dive into that, but let's take it back. Obviously, grew up for a portion of your childhood in Alabama and then moved to Pflugerville. Talk about that transition, but then just playing, football in high school in the state of Texas, what that was like, any fun memories from your time down at Pflugerville-Hendrickson.
Man, it was quite the change, going from Alabama's very small town, Alabama, where everybody knew everybody. Was a town of like 30 people probably, and they were all family, moving to the middle of Texas where there's thousands and thousands of people. It was very different, but I feel like I got acclimated pretty well. And, just growing up throughout the years, playing football, I didn't really realize how big football was in Texas until after the fact. So after I went to college and everything, and you have people coming around from, different places throughout the states, and, they just want to hear how Texas football was. And I was like, for me, it was just football, but for guys outside of the state of Texas to see their enthusiasm about Texas football and wanting to know more about how Texas football was, it really made me realize that, high school football in Texas is a different breed. So, it was fun, but, for me, it was just another step forward. But yeah, man, it was different.
No, dude, it sure is. People always say, California, Florida, and Texas got the best high school ball, but I think we can all agree, Texas is a little different on that front. I want to hop into, why you chose OU, but before you answer that, I want to share a memory that I have of you. Probably the first time I ever saw you. I think you were up on a visit I think it was during spring ball or something.
Oh,
We're in the weight room. We're in their weight room, and Samaje gets brought in with one of the coaches, and I turn around and look at this guy, and I'm like, "Is this a new strength coach coming in? Like this? It is huge. Like it's going on." I just remember being like, "That's the biggest high school kid I've ever seen in my entire life." But so talk about process. Picking OU, other folks that were, knocking at the door and stuff, and why the Sooners?
Yeah, man. It really came down to 3 schools for me as I ended my recruitment, and it was between OU, Alabama, and TCU. And, once I first stepped foot on OU, it just felt like home for me, and talking to the coaches and everything, it just solidified that because, everywhere else that I went, it was, they were really big on seniority. So a young freshman really didn't have a chance to compete for a starting job. But, when I talked to the coaches at OU, Coach Stoops and Coach Gundy, they were like, you're going to have an opportunity, but you have to earn it. And that was all I needed to hear. As long as I had an opportunity to go out and play my freshman year, that was all I needed. And OU gave me that opportunity, and I'm very grateful. But outside of the football aspect of everything, just the whole vibe at OU just felt like home, and it felt like a place that I could really flourish in, academically and socially. Even though I'm not that social of a person, it just felt like it felt easy to kind of migrate into coming out of high school and in a totally new situation. But OU just made it feel easy, and I feel like that was one of the bigger reasons that I chose OU.
I love it. Let me ask you this. Go ahead, Con.
No, I was going to say Trevor will probably ask you about this, but talk about playing early. You come in, play as a true freshman, and set a little record there. We'll get into that. Trevor may ask you about that right here.
Yeah, I want to talk about, some memories that I have, Samaje, of when you got on campus. Y'all had an awesome class, man. Like from day one, the leadership in y'all's class, how y'all stepped onto, the old turf field outside of the Switzer, and we were just doing routes on air, and you guys stepped in, and man, y'all had some talent, obviously. But I remember you specifically, you talk about like you're not super loud. You kind of keep to yourself and you just get your work done. And I respected that so much out of you that off season where you just put your head down and you worked. And then obviously we get into fall camp and you prove yourself from a playing standpoint, and we get into the beginning part of the year. And I'll never forget, we went on the road to West Virginia, and hostile environment. We're like number 4 in the country or something around that number. And things were just, it was an uphill battle, right? I mean, it was a really tough game. I wasn't playing all that great, but we were moving the ball a little bit. And then like second half, that was like the Samaje Perine coming out party, man. We handed you the ball, and you just went and you got first down after first down after first down. And I remember not only your production that night, but just the way in which kind of you handled the adversity of the game. It was like super even keel. Give me the ball. I'm gonna press the block. I'm gonna put my foot in the ground, and I'm gonna go get what I can. I'm gonna put my screws into somebody, and I'm gonna fall forward. Hey, we need a big play here. I'm gonna go make it happen. So, from an early age, had a lot of respect for you as a player. But talk about that. Obviously, you and Joe Mixon come in together. Joe ends up sitting out that year. You have an opportunity to play a lot. What was it like? Obviously, a couple years prior, you were in a tiny town in Alabama. You moved to big Texas football, and now you're playing under the lights at Owen Field and across the country on national TV. What was that like for you? Because as a player, it looked like you handled it so gracefully.
It was different, I do my best to stay as even keel as I can. Don't get too high, don't get too low. I try to keep that steady, throughout everything that I do, but football wise, especially because, in an instant, things can change and momentum can change. So you can't get too high on yourself. And then, you make a, bad play or something. And again, you're at the bottom of bottoms. So I just try to keep it even keel because I know, football is a lot of ups and downs. And, when you're up, you're feeling good, but you can't let it get to you because you get too big headed, then that's when everything comes crashing down. So I do my best to just, keep my head down, continue to work, do what I need to do. And, at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, then I'll celebrate a little bit, not too much, but, I'll still let people know that I enjoy being there because sometimes it may come off as me not enjoying where I'm at. And I am. I love every moment of it, but, I don't really show it as much just because I want to stay, as even keeled as I can.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. No, so let's move along. Freshman year, we had Ty on the podcast and obviously asked him about one of his favorite moments, and it was the game where you broke the single game rushing record just because how much it meant to the offensive line. And he was talking about how they told you, no, you're going to. It wasn't an option for you. Just, that game is so big, for every Sooner fan, for the program, just something that, to have a record like that, it's huge for a program. So just talk about that game a little bit. I know the weather was horrible that week, and it was a little bit cold, a little bit rainy. Just talk about, kind of as that game went on, just your mindset and kind of when you realized that record was, something that could be attained.
Man, that whole day was just, it was a blur, but it dragged on because the game got delayed, got rain delayed, lightning delayed, whatever. So we were just sitting in the hotel, and then once we, drove up and everything, it was raining, and every coach that I talked to was like, yeah, we're going to run the ball. It is what it is. It's terrible weather. We just got to, it is what we're going to have to rotate. So Keith Ford goes out and he has an unfortunate fumble. And then Gundy put me in the next drive, and I think it was the first play. It was just a 56-yard touchdown. And yeah, it's going to be a long day. So it was just a blur, man. It was like I was running gassers out there with wet shoes on. It was terrible. But as we was getting to the, later in the third quarter, I was talking to Gundy. I was like, man, we got the game pretty much won, and there's no need for me to go back out there. Let's give some other guys some carries. And he was like, all right, I feel that. But then Ty came up, and he was like, nah, absolutely not. You need, a few more yards, however many yards it was, to break this record. And it was like, we're getting this record. And I was like, Ty, come on, bro. We're good. We won. He's like, nah, I'm not taking no as an answer. So I was bullied into going back out there by my linemen. And afterwards, I could see where they were coming from because it is cool. It is special. But I was more happy for them to see how they reacted to it than I was for myself, just because I know how hard those guys worked and I know how much it meant to them. So, just to see their reactions and how they felt about themselves after the game, that was worth it more so for me than myself. But yeah, man, that was a long day.
That was a long day, and
it was a fun day watching it.
Yeah, it was. And it was so cool to be a part of it, Samaje. Like, being able to be on the sidelines. I don't remember if you remember this. Cody was playing. I was hurt, and so I got to watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
Best seat in the house, and it's cool. Like, I think every year that you get away from it, and then whenever your time is done and you hang up the cleats for good, that will be a story that is continued to be told, and it'll be cooler ongoing, right, throughout your life. But you obviously speak about it so humbly.
For sure, yeah.
And that's just the way that you are. So I wanted to ask you about this. obviously you got to play with Joe in college, with Joe Mixon in college, and the way that you guys played back and forth and complimented each other is arguably one of the best tandems in college football history, right? And then you go on to the league, and we'll get to that chapter in a few minutes, but you get to play with Joe again, right? And so what I've always loved watching is how you guys celebrate each other. And it was never you versus him or him versus you. It was, what are we going to go do to move the chains, turn first downs into touchdowns? So just talk a little bit about what it was like to play with Joe in college and in the pros and kind of y'all's relationship.
Oh man, that's my guy. I love him to death. He ran into some unfortunate events, but he bounced back, and I feel like with him, he puts his all into anything. And from day one, I feel like we knew coming in what we wanted to accomplish. And I don't know if he would have been like that with anyone else, like with anyone with his type of attitude. I feel like we gelled so well together because we're total opposites. He's loud, he's out there, he's very vocal, about who he is and what he does. And I'm more reserved, laid back, kind of, take the backstage on everything. I feel like that's how we work so well together because, he can scream and yell and chant whatever for the both of us. And I just go in and get my work done, and he can scream and chant for me too. So, so I really feel like that played a big part in how well we work together, just because, first, I didn't have any ego to begin with, but, we kind of put our egos aside, our differences, whatever those were, aside, and we just was like, hey, we want to get to the same spot, so let's make it happen. And there was never, from the first day we stepped on campus, there was never any tension. There was never any downplaying one another. We both came in ready to work, both came in ready to win, and I feel like that showed. And once we got to the league, it was like we never stopped being teammates. Once Cincinnati picked me up, there was never any turmoil. There was never any bad blood or anything like I'm trying to take his spot, he's trying to take my spot. No, we just came in and we worked well together. And, we did that for 4 more years at Cincinnati. And I feel like we just picked up where we left off once I got there. We did what we did well, and we just complimented each other, and we just kept stacking them, and it was fun. And I feel like he's an interesting fella. He's a very interesting fella, very out there. But once you're in tight with him, then he got your back no matter what. So just because we played the same position, and as we all know, this league is cutthroat, that didn't matter with us. We were always cheering each other on the sidelines, hoping nothing but the best for, each other, because we knew we wanted to win games. And in order to win games, you have to work together.
Yeah. I'll pick up again. So back to kind of the record book. Trevor mentioned it before, OU all-time leading rusher. My last game, your last game is a Sooner Sugar Bowl. Kind of talk about that one too, because I know it was another one of those. We may have had the game locked up, and I think folks kind of realized, you were however many yards away, or maybe they knew kind of before going into that. Talk about that moment, getting that carry. I think it was, broke a couple tackles. Looked a lot like the one against Kansas where, shedded a few guys, and then talk about what that record means to you, because, the history of running backs at the University of Oklahoma, there's a few statues of guys out in front of the stadium. I mean, it's one of those places where, it's if it's not RBU, it's one of the, top 5 best places for producing running backs. Talk about that record, what that means to you too.
That record, that was, considering, who had come before me, that one was a big one for me. Funny, I was talking to Bate a few months ago, and he was like, I just realized you save your most exaggerated runs for when you're about to break a record. And I was like, what are you talking about? He was just like, you do some of the most incredible things when you're breaking a record, like the 427, and when you broke the singles or the all-time leading rushing record. You know, you do some of the most incredible things. And I just looked at him for a second. I was like, yeah, I guess you're right. But I don't know what it is that comes over me, and when it's like crunch time, but it's like, I don't know, I just refuse to go down. But with that one, you know, that one was special simply because, you know, of the names of the guys who were up there before me, you know, Billy Sims and Adrian Peterson and all of those guys. And I didn't realize where I was. I think it was Coach Gundy maybe, who told me how close I was. But, you know, once everything after that run was just a blur. You know, I don't remember nothing after it. I've seen pictures and I still don't remember it. But, you know, that was just such a surreal moment for me, to do that, and especially in 3 years. That was the real crazy part for me, was, you know, accomplishing all of that in 3 short years. Mm-hmm. So it was extremely special, but, you know, like I said, it was all a blur after the run. I don't really remember any of it.
Yeah. It is incredible, like you mentioned, given the time frame, and then also the fact that you were sharing carries with Joe and other guys for a lot of your career, mm-hmm. Still be able to accomplish that. You know, of those awards and those accomplishments, those are all obviously imprinted forever in the Oklahoma record books. But from a picture standpoint, the picture I see most of you is kneeling on the 1 yard line against Oklahoma State in Bedlam. I mean, that was, everybody went crazy over that deal. And that was so cool. I loved that. Yeah. And obviously everybody else did as well. But I want to transition real quick, just for the sake of time, Samaje. Obviously you leave a historic career in Norman, and now it's time to go to the no fun league, as I like to call it, the NFL. And you end up out in Washington to start your career. Give us kind of the cliff notes of what that transition is like, how your career has gone thus far, the good moments, the bad moments, obviously doing alongside your family and growing your family, and now ending up in Denver. Just give us kind of your experience so far in the No Fun League.
It's been, for the past, I'd say, 5 years, it's been great. It started off a little rough. Once you get into the league, it's like you have one mistake and you're pretty much done, depending on the coaching staff. So, got drafted to Washington, didn't have the best preseason. But as the season went on, I feel like I did pretty well. I think I ended with like 700 yards or something on about 112 carries, 120 carries, a couple of touchdowns. So it was a decent, you know, rookie year, but, you know, I guess it wasn't good enough. So they go out, they draft a guy, and I was going to put on the back burners. And, you know, I was like, well, it was a short career, but, you know, it is what it is. I was lucky enough to get picked up by Cincinnati after I got let go after training camp of my 3rd year. Got let go by Washington, got picked up by Cincinnati. You know, it's a rough couple of years there. But then the last 2 years, you know, Super Bowl appearance, AFC Championship appearance. And then, you know, I'm here now. This is my 2nd year here in Denver, and it's been good. You know, it's been really good. But I feel like the biggest thing that I've realized is finding your niche and sticking to it and being very good at it. So for me, you know, those early as my 3rd, 4th year, it was mainly special teams. And, you know, when you in high school and college, special teams is, you know, people get looked down on for playing special teams. Like, you play special teams? But in the NFL, that's how 80% of the players stay in the league for as long as they do is special teams. So you get really good at special teams, and I got pretty good at special teams, and then it became a transition to more of a third down back, blocking, catching out of the backfield, making things happen that way. And for the past few years, third down's kind of been my thing, third down, 2 minute. And, I do what I can, and I do what I can to the best of my abilities. And I've been lucky enough to be in this thing for, this is my 8th season. So just, riding the wave and doing what I can. And, I feel like the biggest part of my success has been my wife. She takes care of pretty much everything at the house, from the kids to, food and cleaning up to, everything that's needed to be done at the house. That's what she does. That's what she does best. That's what she does very well. And, without her, I don't know how far I would have been able to make it, because I know when I'm in the building, I can solely focus on that, because I know that she has everything back at the house. I don't have to worry about what's going on at the house, because I know she's taking care of it. So I can put 100% of my effort into, what I'm doing on the field, in the classroom, in the weight room. And I feel like that just makes it so much easier. That just takes such a burden off of me, to where, I can solely focus on football and, not have to worry about anything outside of that, because I know that, that she's going to take care of it.
Man, that's a good word. She's the real MVP. I can actually vouch for that, because I sat next to your wife in an accounting class when I was and she carried me through that one too. So I know how special of a person she is.
Yeah.
Before we kind of get close to wrapping up here, let's hop back. We always like to ask guys, give us a good Schmitty story. It doesn't necessarily have to be about you, because those ones sometimes aren't as funny. It's sometimes more funny when things are happening to somebody else. But if you have a good Schmitty story for us, let's hear it.
I don't have a particular story. It's just the way that, I vividly remember the way that he talks to people when he's upset. He won't look you in your eye. He always give you that side, like, big dog, like, this is the eyes right here, but he's facing this way, looking at the ground, not at you, not up at something else, at the ground, with the, come on, big dog, like, you got to get going now. Like, he won't look at you in the eyes. And I've never understood why. But it's the craziest thing. No matter who it is, what he's talking about, what he's mad at, he's not going to look at you in the eyes. It's always going to be that 45-degree angle. And he's always going to be looking at the ground. But, man, he definitely had to calm down now with all this transfer portal thing. People not taking that. So I'm pretty sure he's calmed down a little bit. But, man, it's the credit. And coming in overweight, putting you on a Stairmaster for 2 hours, then going back and doing the lift with the later group. Oh, my gosh. I'm getting PTSD just thinking about it. And I ain't never even have to do it.
It was. I agree with that. The looking away, but then you knew it was really bad if you started walking with him down to the other end of the indoor, because he had to give some extra words to you. That was all man, he's getting it.
Oh, yeah.
But I think, Samaje, that he is so good for our program because of the accountability and that healthy amount of fear, right? And so obviously he's back, and then we bring in Brent Venables. So last question for you here, and obviously we could talk all day, but obviously Schmitty coming back, and now Brent Venables and staff and the staff that they've assembled. What are your thoughts on the current state of the Oklahoma Sooners, and what are you expecting going into the 2024 season from the guys in Crimson and Cream?
So I've only met Venables a handful of times, but every time I've met him, he's been nothing but, a great guy. And from what I've heard, because, I think he's gotten really close with the pastor of the church that we used to go to when we lived in Norman. So I always go to him for, inside information, our pastor for the inside information. And from everything that I've heard from, his values and, how he carries himself, how he wants to carry the team, as a whole, it's been nothing but great things. I feel like nowadays it's just getting the kids to buy into, what he's preaching. Cause I feel like he's preaching all of the right things, doing all of the right things. It's just getting them to stay in one place, not transfer, not doing none of that, and buying in 100% to, what he's preaching. I feel like if we can get that, doesn't even have to be the best athletes, but if we can get, good, hardworking, guys to come in and trust 100% in the process, and not, flake out at the end, I feel like they'll have a pretty decent season, going forward. But you never know what's going to happen, man. But with him, I feel like they're on the right track and they have the right guy for the job. It's just a matter of, having everyone buy into it.
Yeah. Now, on
Saturdays,
that is one of
those guys we've talked.
Go ahead, Con. Sorry.
No, I was going to say that's one of the things we talked about is, you can get you can get all the 5 stars, you can get that top recruiting class and stuff, but it's having those guys that buy in for the long haul and don't just jump ship early. If you can get guys to buy into the program, buy into your system, and become great leaders. I mean, you think about just off the top of my head, guys like Danny Stutzman and Billy Bowman coming. They had an opportunity to go to the draft. Just guys like that can help lead a defense, help lead a team, especially going into a new conference is huge.
Yeah.
Well, Samaje, man, we're running up on time here, but we love you. Thanks for coming on, sharing some great stories. Best of luck in Denver this year. We'll be watching, and obviously on Saturdays, I know you tune in to the men in crimson and cream, so hopefully both of you guys win a whole bunch of games this year. But we love you, man. We appreciate you. And for all you listeners out there, the Dial It Up podcast with Connor Knight and Trevor Knight. Follow us on social media at Mercury. And, man, every single week we're going to get on here. We're going to have some guests. We're going to talk Oklahoma football and have a blast. So until next week, we will see you guys soon. And as always, Boomer Sooner.